name is Hineche Kweku, member of the Olumba Africa editorial team. Today we are hosting.
Kweku, I can hear you well.
Oh, so let me use the mic.
No problem.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Olongwa Talk series. My name is Hineche Kweku, a member of the Olongwa Africa editorial team. Today, we are hosting the 2021 New Generation African Poets, published by the African Poetry Book Fund. The poets partaking in today's talk are Wọle Adebayo, Precious Arinze, Edil Hassan, Jeremy Karn, Hauwa Shaffii Nuhu, Saradha Soobrayen, Ajibola Tolase. The poets' names have been arranged alphabetically by last name. This event is scheduled to not be longer than 90 minutes, and we will need your cooperation to make this happen. To this end, each of the writers will be reading for about 5 minutes. Then there will be a Q&A at the end. If we have more time, then they can read more poems after. The event is being recorded, and to ensure smooth event, please mute your microphones when you're not talking. When the time comes, you will be allowed to ask questions. For the audience, if you have any questions, please put them either in the comment section or save them to the end so you can ask in person. If you would like to tweet about this event, use the hashtag #OlongoTalks. Thank you once again for coming, and we hope you have a good time. And now I hand over to the publisher of Olongo Africa, Mr. Kola Tobusun, for some opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kweku. And thank you, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kola Tobusun, the publisher of Olongo Africa. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this event we call Olongo Talks on behalf of the editorial staff of Olongo Africa, our readers, and our supporters. We conceived this event as a way to continue a conversation among African writers producing work today. And today's event is a collaboration between the African Poetry Book Fund, Olongo Africa, and our invited writers. So welcome. But first, a few words about Olongo Africa itself. Olongo Africa was founded in September 2020 as part of the Brick House Cooperative, which is a collection of 9 publications working together to create great literary arts content, build an audience, share revenue, and showcase a model of publication that does not depend on ads to survive. Each publication is independent of the other, run by individual writers and journalists, but we work together towards the same goal, which is seeking new ways to ply our trade in an ethical yet innovative way. In that month, we launched a Kickstarter fundraising campaign that raised slightly over $90,000 and shared between the publications to begin work and pay our writers. We began publishing around January 2021, just slightly over a year ago. Since then, Olongo Africa has published poetry, prose fiction, journalism, non-fiction, travelogues, translations, biographical profiles, personal essays, photography, interviews, and many more. With the support of our subscribers, supporters, editors, and writers, we continue to publish with the aim of building a new community of young and engaging writers across the continent. We hope you will continue to read and support us. New work is published every Wednesday and Friday at olongoafrica.com. We are also currently raising funds again on Kickstarter to support our work this year. People who donate receive a copy of the new book we published last year called Arinze Quarterly, featuring some of the best writings from the Brick House publications. The details will be pasted in the comments section. We have always wanted to have a community of writers and creative people in conversation with each other. At Olongo, we have published interviews with African writers and authors, but like we say in Yoruba, Ojulorowa, which means conversations are easier and more fluid when we see each other face to face. But because of the global pandemic and the change in how we interact with each other today, Zoom has come in handy. In the future, we might add podcasts as well, at least until such a time when we can gather together in the flesh as we did before. Personally, the idea for this event reminds me of a time at the University of Ibadan, where we gathered every week under the trees at the Faculty of Arts in what we call the Ibadan Poetry Club to share drafts of our poems, listen to each other, read theirs, and critique each other's work. Those kinds of communities are important in the development of not just a culture of writing, but the creation of a community. We fed off of each other's creativity. We were all better for it. In 2019, we registered the Lagos Poetry Club as a way of resuscitating the idea, but then the pandemic hit. So maybe this evening will suffice as the beginning of a new community of poets gathering together to hear each other's work as a way of sustaining our creative fervor. The writers participating in today's events have been selected and published by the African Poetry Book Fund, coordinated by Kwame Dawes and Chris. They are some of the best upcoming poets around the continent today, and we're proud to be in their company. Today, we will listen to them read excerpts from their chapbook published under the African Poetry Book Fund box set, which you can get online, I believe, at the African Poetry Book Fund website. Poets. I look forward to an exciting session and the Q&A as well, and I hope that you do too. We continue to welcome new volunteers. Bola Fumi, sorry, your mic is on.
I know what I have to do.
That will be helpful. Sorry, 1 second. Let me. Okay, we'll get that up. So thank you everyone again for coming. I look forward to an exciting session and a Q&A as well. I hope you do too. At Olongo Africa, we continue to welcome new volunteers, writers, contributors. And if you need to reach us, you can send us an email at submissions@olongoafrica.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Olongo Africa. So now let's enjoy the next 1.5 hours of poetry, inspiration, and conversation. I hand over to our moderator for today, Mr. Salawu, himself a poet and the product of the African Poetry, and also our managing editor. Jide is a strong pillar for the work we do at Olongo Africa. So over to you, Jide.
Thank you, Mr. Kolatumboso. I appreciate that introduction. And please, I just want to encourage us that if we are not reading and if we are not called to do anything, please let us mute the mic, because it actually will disrupt the flow of conversation and reading. And we want to enjoy our invited guests. That is what we are here for. We don't want to interrupt. So thank you all the guests and the audience. I will just go by the order of things that we have arranged, how the reading will begin. We have arranged the order of reading alphabetically by surname, last name of the author. And for each poet that I call, I will first read your bio. After reading your bio, then that will take just like 1 minute. Then you can read as many poems you want within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes. So for the audience, please, if you have any questions at all for the poet, please just drop the questions in the chat box. When we are done with the reading, we are going to come back to the questions. You can actually put the poet you are addressing your question in the bracket or something, so that we know that that question goes to this particular poet, something. So welcome once again. My first poet on the list is KSA, Kolawole Adebayo, Samuel Adebayo, and here is Bao. Kolawole Samuel Adebayo is a Nigerian poet with works published in Bottom Poetry, Glass Poetry, and elsewhere. His chapbook manuscript, Invocations, was selected by Chris Abani and Kwame Dawes for the APBF New Generation African Poet Chapbook Box Set Series, Akashic Books 2021. He currently lives in Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria. Over to you, Mr. KSA. You can come on the platform now, and want to hear you, want to enjoy yourself.
All right, good evening, everyone. Excited to be the one kickstarting the reading, even though I would have preferred not to. All right, so I'm going to read from my chapbook titled Invocation. I'm going to read the first poem and then read as many poems as the time would allow me. So this first poem is titled The Horse and the Rider. And Miriam answered them, "Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea." Exodus 15:21. In the beginning, they gallop as if they ride into a procession of victory songs. But the sea inside my body drowns both the horse and the rider inside me. It's such grief. My body, which was made for me, is also against me. I walk forward, but I always end where I began. Ejiope. Like a door without a key, I must be turned down before the possibility of an exit or entrance. In search of deliverance, I commune with all the deities. Lift up your head, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors. By the river bank, I invoke all the spirits with an offering of kola nuts. Take this, all you who dwell in the sea and in the air and beneath the land. Take this and give me an exit from this realm of grief. Take this and give me an entrance into the realm of neon and rainbow. May the horse and its rider no longer be thrown into the sea. May the sea inside my body be quiet as the grave. Thank you. That's the first poem. I'd like to read this other poem titled Incantation. Give the dark its moment as first light peeks from the horizon. The day never ceases to break, never stops weaving its way out of night's bondage. Dawn's feet cannot be changed. No divination of darkness withstands sunrise. Iwaju Luminshon, the river never reverses, and whose bravery dares the whirlwind, and whose courage stares into the sun's eyes. I become the day, a light peeling the night's skin. I become the river, water moving past mountainous enemy. I become the whirlwind, the origin of wreck. I become the sun, flames gathered for carnage. Let all who stand against me fall before me. Let all my enemies be plowed into dust. Thank you. I'm wondering if everybody can hear me clearly.
Yeah, I think your network is
We can hear
actually
you.
It's a
but
bit
we can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah.
I wish there was a way we could
crappy.
appear at the end of
Yes.
what reading.
I think maybe if I turn off my video to be better.
No. We can hear you. I think it's just a few frozen frames, but we could hear you.
Maybe a minute.
Okay.
Maybe a minute or two.
This I have 2 more minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. This next poem is titled The Second Incantation. And I think it to be my last poem. I can read some more if we have some more time. The Second Incantation. Ohun tí a bá wí fún ọgbọ́n lọ́gbọ́n gbọ́. Ohun tí a bá wí fún ọgbà lọ́gbà ń gbà. My tongue becomes a seal, my mouth a cottage of prophecies. Let everything I say be formed as it was in the beginning, God's voice echoing over darkened waters. Let me say, let there be joy and find it so. My lover curled around me like a serpent wound around a mango tree. Let all my desires walk out of my heart into the earth. My glorious Adam formed from the dust of my soul. I make all things in the image of my wish. Let me be God above all my foes. Let none of their voices be mightier than mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kolawole. So I think they are making some kind of suggestions that maybe the silence is disconcerting. Maybe can we can use actually the reactions, or I don't just want, if we start to unmute now and it takes time for some people to mute again, it becomes you wait and wait or something. But actually you can drop your reaction. You can make your comment short phrase, hey, super cool, super excellent or something. You can drop it in the chat box or something, or show the reactions button at the edge, and we'll know that you are reacting to at that time. There will be time for questions, and we just want to as much as possible to let people enjoy the something, because I don't know. I don't know, but actually do you want us to try that out, Katie? We can actually try that. If it becomes so chaotic, then we can tell everyone to mute again, but I don't want something that will be too noisy or something. So okay, good, we are going as we have now, so fine, I'm cool with that. Next on the line is thank you for that beautiful reading, KSA. I'm coming back to you. I have a question for you. So the next on the line is Precious Arinze, and there is this beautiful bio I'm going to read now. So Precious Arinze is a Nigerian poet, essayist, and author of the chapbook The Hope of Floating Has Carried Us So Far, selected for the New Generation African Poet Series, African Poetry Book Fund 2021. Their works have appeared in Bitter People, Lolwe, Art in Africa, Agbowo, The Republic, Journal, Boston Review, Electric Literature, Glass, a Journal of Poetry, Exposition Review, Berlin Quarterly, among others. Precious, the mic is yours. Let us hear you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Precious Arinze, and I'll be reading from my chapbook, The Hope of Floating Has Carried Us So Far. And the first poem I'll be reading is titled, How Often Do You Think Your Life is a Mistake? Rarely is the answer close to my tongue, but I'm trying to be honest about how I feel. So consider an empty bowl. Imagine for a moment my grandmother's disemboweled room, her final pulse, haunting the walls under the blindfold of darkness, and a prayed-for season of amnesia cupped in its palms. She must have known there were ghosts in my blood. She must have seen every night I wanted to disappear. She must have seen there is no mercy in what the body remembers or inherits, and there will always be loneliness, no matter how many times someone sutures your name to their lips. What is hope? Maybe the river, the drowned thing, the fishes blindly moving through the currents, or all at once. Everyone dreams of cracking out their skins a different person. I am forever measuring what comes next against that 1 month when joy was the music my lover assembled in the middle of night. I am leaving myself open for that. Maybe the haunting doesn't have to mean anything that can claim us. I'm trying to say feelings are like rivers, constantly departing. I mean, all my desires are braver than me. Somewhere, there's a bridge that crowns the water. Go to the end of it. The music will make its way to you. And this second poem is titled Benediction. There is more than one kind of prayer. I too know what it means to convert grief into smoke or something resembling water, but isn't. To give oneself up to the thing that feels closest to forgiveness and not know which sin you are running from or to this time. What I'm trying to say is it's tough being the lone fire extinguisher in a building with burning gas pipes that won't quit. And after all this time, I have never seen no burning that could erase years faster than the night we watched my father walk through the living room naked to pee in the kitchen sink. And suddenly the roles were reversed. A and my brother was pulling clothes over our father's unsober limbs with movements so soft, I swear he didn't even touch him. And the next morning, he remembered none of it, or pretended not to. And I understand that only a few things can hold silence the way shame does, sewn heavy with the tread of every regret that has led us to that place. And in many ways, it is easier to get used to the promise of dying than the thought of being alone. And we sometimes give too much of ourselves to remain in this world. Of what difference is a little dignity? Even now, all of church is learning how everything good is high up above. All that has loved us, all we had yet to gain. Who can blame us for the road we chose to take us there? And this final poem is one of the titular poems in the book, and it's called The Hope of Floating Has Carried Us So Far. Dim fluorescent lamps, the swoosh swoosh of wind moving through itself, thick with dust and memories, the music seducing its way to us from a different corner of the room, the operatic unease of two people who have dreamed of harvesting songs from the other's lips, an entire evening hanging like apples in the face of newly discovered hunger. And having succumbed to the promise of new beginnings, we sit on the couch and talk about how impossibly long the year has been, the weapons it fashioned against us, and how they prospered, but there are no regrets, only longing. And because you have the softest hands I have ever wanted to hold, I let you touch me everywhere. Each new wave of desire sharpening what came before. Sometimes joy is a warm mouth and a tongue capable of impersonating the ocean. In its stillness and frenzied trashing, my toes curling like earthworms intoxicated by salt, and my heart, a boombox erupting in the library of my chest, like the fireworks that shake the windows, sighting the sky into 1,000 shimmering pieces. What matters? Thank you.
Thank you, Precious. That is, please, yeah, I can see the claps, and thank you so much. I mean, that's well deserved. So absolutely gorgeous. I love it, all the poems you've read. So if you have questions for Precious, you can drop it in the chat box. Drop those questions in the chat box and we'll address them during the Q&A. So on my next, the next person I'm going to call to come on board and read for us is Edil Hassan. Edil is a Somali-American poet. She has received support from Bread Loaf Writers Conference and the Farmer Studio Center. Her work has appeared in poetry and anthologized in the Breakbeat Poet Volume 3, Alal. If you hear me, she currently studies and teaches poetry at Washington University. Please join me and welcome Edil to the show. Edil, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm loving all the poems I've heard so far. Very grateful to be here. My name is Edil Hassan. I will be reading a few poems from my chapbook, Dixie Girl. I think 3, maybe 2, depending on time. So the first one is called, I Think I Dreamt It, There I Am Again. I am still a girl, wiping ash from my arms with spit. I confuse the words for heart and mistake. I see the bleeding mouths of panting dogs and cry, my mistake, too big, forgive me, my heart, I won't look again. I fill my mouth with tamarind, soaked chili, gnaw and bite of bone, lick my right hand to the knuckle, mean. The sheep tied to the post in the courtyard is dinner for the week. My aunt holds its head, mouth clenched, marbled red, and moves her hand over its naked scalp, the way she oils the field sown into mine. I hold the basin used to drain the sheep of its blood. The flies gather, as if by instinct, finding all that warmth, all that red I knew was inside me too. For years there I stood, watching the swarm make a home of it, so jealous of their ease, I couldn't look away. I think many of us have made the mistake of befriending the sheep at our grandmother's house. I won't do that again. My second poem is Fried Fish in Sale. I joke that I'm boy crazy. I dance in downtown apartments, sour smoke parting to reveal the next man to rest a hand against my back and imagine it, touching and touch already receding. And rather than admit to having gone a month without my fill of love, I fill the lapis of the morning and think of you. To think you could have left that time sailing down the Nile, fistful of lemon, fingers glamoring oil, you pulled a bass's spine like your mother taught you, tongued the last fleck of meat on that gleaming bone, and choked. Your life, you thought, to no longer meander like that river. Your life, I thought, to pay the final price for that gluttony that now I too have inherited, am indebted to, like how my room is indebted to twilight, here where the light, the last note of a man and his call to prayer floats, moving through the dark, a floodlight of silk, one lover calling the other back to bed. And here in this city, I am unmoored by anything that sounds like leaving. Yet there it is again, behind my eyes, offering me the night's first dance, the shimmer of a blue hand. I think I have time for one last one. It's called September, Old City. The whole city an ocean. The fisherman's knife, blue with blood, drains filled with translucent skin, ceramic pots, broken shards of salt. The whole city an ocean. Its mouth open in astonishment, like the sea brim leaping between wet hands, held out to me like a fine bouquet. To keep from drowning, I blinked. I passed the weeks awakened by the green flick of lizards. I shrieked when I saw them. And birds, so many I named them in my sleep. Russet-breasted rustler, warbled-backed thrush, the lonely lark with a crown of gold, old world swiftling, reed-tailed piper, sand-throated nightjar with a voice like silk had she not swallowed the desert before her visit. I named them so I wouldn't startle when I woke to their rustling, not because I loved them. Thank you, everyone.
Please give it to Eddie, please. Thank you so much, Eddie, for that beautiful reading. It's absolutely cool, gorgeous. These are the words. We would move on so that we don't waste our time. We don't waste our time. And the next on the line is Mr. Jeremy T. Karn, whose chapbook is Miriam Magdalit, and was selected by Kwame Dawes and Chris Abani for the New Generation African Poetry Book Forum 2021. His works have appeared and forthcoming in the 2035 Contemporary African Poets Anthology, Oxy, George Refill, Ghost Art Literary Journal, Will Road, High Slope Press, Lolway, Farah Poetry, Kissing Dynamite, Up the Staircase, Quarterly, Olongo Africa, Liminal Transit Review, Autofocus Late, Stone Poetry Journal, Afro Literary Magazine, Eremite Poetry, and elsewhere. He is the 2020 winner of the Atmos Terrific Editor Choice Award. He tweeted at Jeremy Karn 1996. Oh no, Jeremy Karn 96. That's it. Jeremy Karn 96. Jeremy, you have the show in your hands. Please take us where you want.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Karn, and I'm from Nigeria. My chapbook entitled Mirror Magdalene was selected by Kwame and Chris, and I'm really delighted to be here with you guys today. I will be reading the first poem from my chapbook entitled Mirror Magdalene, which is actually the title of the chapbook. I read, the boy that ate her heart must have gone into heart for himself. The neighbor dog that sister on her body must have inherited her remaining life. After the war, the government planted flowers in the soil to hide the wounds left there. The country holds more dead girls than those alive. It holds screams that grew in their bones but never left their mouth. And because the neighbor door that ate her off the street has a grave, her mother sometimes lays flour on it, knowing that her daughter is resting in the bed of the door. And I'll read another poem, and the title of this poem is Silence is the Name of My Mother Body. If you look closer, you will see it. It looks so much like my mother, the way her body loses every screw that holds it. How silence makes it a sky thing. It exists within me too, like the start of fire eating her eyes, and the picture in my father wọle. She refused to smile for. At 44, my mother's body still stimulating the voice for instance. My father sometimes thinks he is deaf. My mother is overcrowded with silence that fits in for truth like a soul. Lately, my mother has been learning how to choke her throat with a fork, showing up maps to retrieve her words for more years to say to my father. And I will read another poem. It's entitled Ode for Miriam Magdalene's Son. I did read this poem for a friend that died a few years ago, and it reads, that night I couldn't tell the difference between day and life, the way you cannot tell the difference between war and peace in this country. You ate a full plate of death and still call for more. No one will tell you when you die, but we all know one day we will taste the version of death the country offers. I still remember your coffee, too large, like this country, to feed your thin bodies. Memories of us have floated on my tongue, loaded like a gun buried in the backyard of horses in Moravia. I bet you are still smiling in the picture. I guess you are still dreaming of leaving this country. And I will read the last point. And the title of this point is
No Japanese point.
the Gospel of the Gospel of Jesus' wife. I wrote it after Morton Parker. After my mother saw her dream from her father, she learned that there are some prayers that will never be heaven. And there was some night after the war that disrupted us of our body. My father, essential to Accra, came without him teaching my mother how to tell what was wrong. I grew up with this coming out of God's internal life, the war nurturing me as its own. At night, my mother falls asleep with her eating plate. She was telling love for money. The first man that showed my mother how to hit me was not father, but the man that filled her stomach with dragonflies. Often at night, my mother cried on her breast beneath his blood-stained body. That is how she prepared a table for us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I enjoyed your poem, and thanks to everyone who listened to that to those beautiful poems. If you have questions for Mr. Jeremy, you can drop the questions in the chat box. We'll appreciate that, and then we come back to those questions during the Q&A. So we'll move on to Hauwa Shaffii Nuhu, who is a poet and essayist from Nigeria, whose work has appeared on Popular, Ake Review, Lolwe, Jalada Africa, Isele Magazine, and elsewhere. She is a 2018 Fellow of Ebedi Writers Residency and is the nonfiction editor at Agbowo. A chapbook of poetry, Sister, was published in 2021 by Akashic Books in collaboration with the African Poetry Book Fund. Hauwa, please take us to where you want.
Looks like she dropped off.
Yeah, I
Thank you
think it's
so
been
much.
okay. She's back.
Can everyone hear me? Can people?
Yeah, I can hear you, but your network is not stable. But
Yeah,
I can
it's
hear you.
not
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah, please go on.
okay. Thank you. I'm going to read. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a thrill to listen to the other poets read their poetry. Really gorgeous poetry. I'm going to read the very first poem that opens the book, which is titled Tonight. I assemble all the people in the small country of my chest. I wrap them to my bones and I feel my body sag from the weight of love in an empty room. I open my mouth and I'm my lover. I close my eyes and I'm my sister. Tonight, my heart swelters with my people. When I sigh, I hear a certain move. I say, Lord, protect the people I love. Lord, let their songs remain songs forever. Yeah. The next poem, Unraveling. At a wedding party, I unwrap at the dance floor like a gift unto myself. My grief leaving me in dance steps like an old song in memory. It is me coming off my skin. I sway with my joy and move my waist all the wrong ways. I have not yet learned that I cannot save a person from themselves. So my eyes slither through the crowd, searching. He, my brother, is seated at a corner, back to the stage, and thought in a glass. Last night, he cried into my palms. He said he felt cleansed and reborn. I danced to him. There is a lie flickering in his eyes. I am now searching for his voice. He speaks, barricading his mouth with a palm. He turns away slightly, but a lie is a lie because it ends up revealed. When the smoke hits my nostrils from his mouth, I feel the crack of a thing breaking. It could be a shift in the air. It could be me. Please stop me when I'm out of my time. Okay, next false lines. Because I am trying to hold my brother's cracks together to keep him from falling like a pebble into my shadow, I walk in a zigzag in front of him for too long. I forget to look back. Because I know no other darkness but mine, I protect him from no other darkness but mine. So when he falls into a hole, I don't see the pitch dark inside it as a thing that is his, a thing that belongs to him. My guilt is a room without air. Okay, Kola says I have 2 more minutes. I suppose I can read one last poem. It's titled Why? Because I do not know what else to do with the severed memory. It died like power cuts, so sudden I didn't catch it going. There was light and then there wasn't. Because I did not know how to hold ash in my mouth. Because he suffered alone for too long before help came. Because it was not right that he suffered alone. Because he was mine and then he wasn't. Because I knew only one type of loving and it was not enough. Because I wasn't fluent in his silence. Because I didn't know his language at all. Because I mistranslated his eyes for too long. Because I did not notice what was broken in his laughter or that it was. Because I did not know that you cannot trust a person with their self. Because I did not know that trust was not the language of vigilance. Because love isn't protection, though I wanted it to be. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, Hauwa, for that. You know what? They call this thing Ogbuna Feli Biamala, like that's a Yoruba phrase. It's super hot, right? It's super hot. You don't want to put your hands there. So that's really, really beautiful.
Thank you
We
very
will
much.
move on to the next poet, Saradha Soobrayen, who is a creative activist working with poetry, visual art, and life art. She is a passionate advocate for LGBTQI+ rights. Saradha nurtures new poets and artists making transformative works. Ongoing projects include Sounds Like Root Shock, a multidisciplinary poetic inquiry into the depopulation of Chagos Archipelago. Saradha, you have us for 5 minutes. Take us to where you want.
Okay, thank you everyone. Lovely poetry, brilliant, brilliant poems. I'm going to go straight to 1970 and setting the scene for the depopulation of the Chagos Archipelago. So immaculate, Perros Bajos, Salomon, Diego Garcia. Bien propre, Perros Bajos, Salomon, Diego. The archipelago will be mapped with such precision, such smoke and mirrors, while the Chagos children cling to the margins of sleep. They will be hurrying slowly, unaware of the will of the West, unaware of the milk from the eyes of the coconut seeping. Their houses will not be made of wood, but small hands of air, a floating population. A thumbprint on a door will cease to exist. The pregnant goat yawns and the hen scrapes a ditch to bed down. A fiction will unfold while a boy scratches his name on a rock. They will not be told why. The copper workers' tools will lie limp and dull. The mainland winding down for the rest of its natural life. They will not be told when. Washing will be left hanging. The crops and herbs unpicked. Parts of the forest will remain. The shed will catch the last whimpers of dogs, rounded and gassed. Their Sareh will begin. The graves of ancestors will not be tended. Women will be sent on bogus trips to Port Louis. As the home ship is finally docked, they will be told that their islands have been sold. And the next poem, we're going to go back 500 years, back to, it's a poem that is in voice of the island of Mauritius, and it's told in, it's almost like 500 years of colonial history told in one night of passion. My conqueror. She circles me with her Portuguese compass and settles just long enough to quench her thirst. She discards my Arabian name, Dina Arobi, and calls me Cern from Island of the Swans. With a hunger of 1,000 Dutch sailors and a tongue as rough as a sea biscuit, she stakes a longer claim and makes herself comfy, bringing her own Javanese deer, pigs and chickens. Defending her lust for breast and thighs, she blames the ship's rats for sucking the dodo from its shell. Looking past my ebony limbs, she sees carved boxes and marron hands at work stripping my forests. She renames me in honor of Prince Maurice of Nassau, a good choice, sure to scare off pirates keen to catch a bite of river shrimp flamed in rum. Disheartened by cyclones and rat bites, she departs. For 11 years, I belong to no one. I sleep to the purring of turtle doves, sheltered by a circle of coral reef. My oval shape rises from the coast up to the peaks of mountains. A westerly wind carries her back. She unbuttons her blue naval jacket slowly and takes me. I'm her L'Île de France, a petit bé. She brings spaniels. She captains the marrons who are pinned down and flogged each time they run. She takes her fill in Port Louis, shipping casks of pure sweetness to the tea-drinking ladies of Europe. Young Baudelaire jumps ship on his way to India. His stepfather wants to cure him of literature. But once a poet makes his mark, no tide can wash away his words. Oubliez parfumé que la soleil caresse. And what can I say? He was so delicious. Sadly, sweet Baudelaire soon finds himself in such a profound melancholy after seeing a whipping in the main square. After 2 weeks, he sails to France, leaving me a sonnet. With the pride and jealousy of the British Admiralty, she punishes me with her passion for corsets, sea blockades, and endless petticoats wide as the empire. The oldest profession is alive and thrives in my harbors, strumpets and exports, cross-dressing captains and girls in white breeches, boys who like collars and chains. She brings a pantomime cast of Malbars and Lascars to my shores. Their passage back to India is guaranteed if only they can read the scripts. The cane breaks backs. Tamil, Urdu, Hindi cling to their skins like beads of sweat. Hundreds of tongues parched like the mouths of sweethearts in an arranged ceremony. She is kind and ruthless and insists on the Queen's English. At night, Creole verb slips in and makes mischief. Each time she comes, she pretends it's the first time she's landed here, but she soon becomes bored, tired of flogging and kicking the dogs. She doesn't know which uniform to wear. I'm no one and everyone, she complains, and you have no more distinguishing marks left to conquer. Salomon, Perros Barros, Diego Garcia. She pulls down her Union Jack. It falls like a sari around her bare feet.
Thank you, Saradha. We won't. That's a long one, and
yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening very carefully to that very long poem. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. I follow the story. Really, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. That's the word. So I will move on in order not to waste our time. I'm going to move on to our last poet for the day, Ajibola Tolashe, and who will be reading for us from Kola Lobitos. Tolashe is a Nigerian poet and essayist. He's a graduate of the MFA program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. His work has appeared in America, Data, Lit Orb, New England Review, Periscuna, and elsewhere. He is a Wallace Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Tolashe.
Thank you so much for that interview, for that introduction, Jide. Thank you so much. The first poem I would read is titled Coffin for Head of State. It's based on a Fela Kuti song of the same title, and it takes its epigraph from the song. It goes, "Them burn my house too, them kill my mama, so I carry the coffin, we go Dodan Barracks." Fela Kuti. Though I was a firm believer in the fire within, I refused to believe it could touch a house. The evidence, I mean the charred body, spotted like leopard skin, didn't do much to convince me. I knew the wrath of fire from government's Kalakuta show. Government issued firebenders working the magic of light at Kalakuta Republic, a nation within a nation in which the evidence, I mean my mother, became the medium of two worlds. I carried my mother, a hand poised as if it were rested on a doorknob. What passage was she holding the door to? I couldn't seal the evidence. I mean, I couldn't nail my mother's coffin because her hand was in the way of the lead, as though she would continue to hold on to life. I mean, what coroner puts their print on the evidence? I carried the coffin. I mean, I carried my mother. The next poem is titled Elegy for Fela Kuti. I did not reply to the woman who asked why I was crying by myself at the bus stop. I did not lose my voice. It was the language that left me. She wanted to know why I opened my mouth to the void of the night. It was the bird in my throat that broke free. It was the bird in my throat that broke free. I opened my mouth to the void of the night. It was my language that left me. She wanted to know why I did not lose my voice. I was crying by myself at the bus stop. I did not reply to the woman who asked why. The next poem I would read is Obalende, Lagos. The story of this land is told by tourists, mariners who barter their shirts for gin, natives at the wharf who labor on decks. This is Lagos Highland, patch of dirt spewed by the Atlantic. Smoked fish is fed to men loading oil barrels into ships that took slaves decades ago. History returns here without its chains, as white men disembarking onto the piers. With skins tanned by the African sun, I came to the highland in my youth to find my space among the jostling bodies of commuters at the intersection of Campos and Broad Streets, where the sweat of my father is lost in the mineral of the soil. I walk into the high-rise building. A foreign correspondent is interviewing residents for $100. I answer questions about my family size and gross income. Yes, we pay tax. She can tell I am not poor. She declares me ineligible for our project. Outside, I dig into the ground with my bare hands. I find half of a broken collar. The bones of the neck is held along broken. My father, in the highland of his youth, found a chain at his job where he tightened bolts and greased gears. Although what hung from the chain was an automobile engine, he returned home knowing he could never go back. The last poem I would read is titled Buffer Zone. I'm here because my family has been evicted. And if every 7-year-old is homeless, there will be a Charles Taylor army of boys. This morning, a neighbor got me drunk on gin. He says he's building a man inside me. My mother is mad that my father won't beat me. She won't hit a man either. It's the wet season of '99, and our men are with ECOMOG, fighting in Liberia and Sierra Leone. I'm happy my father is alive. There's an eviction notice in his pocket. I'm at the landlord's door because my mother says someone needs to talk to him man to man. I make my hands into guns and fire at his door. I hang out with other boys. We play in the empty roads. We make impressions of the head of state. We pretend to shoot guns. They say we are the voice of the streets, but I want to say I'm hungry and mean it. Maybe we are quiet in the dark because we hear our bowls filling with rainwater dripping from the roof gutters. Or we are quiet because we think silence precedes miracles. If Jesus lives here, it's enough if he makes our bowls into lakes. My father is a fisherman. Watching him slap fish dead with his baton, I know he is not different from the men at war. Insomniac, haunted by the open eyes of dead fishes. Thank you so much for listening.
Someone in the comment dropped and I think that is just the absolute reaction that I also go by. It is Thank you, Tolashi. I really enjoyed that. It's really, really beautiful. And everyone who has come to read for us today, all the poems are just gorgeous. I have no order, in no particular order. All the poems are absolutely beautiful. So we have questions and answer session now, and then I don't know if I don't have we gotten any question in chat box, or you can just show the the emoticon, something, raise up your hand and signify that I have a question for Tolashi, Hauwa, Saradha, Edil, Precious, KSA, Jeremy, and Sarah, everyone who has come to read for us today. So I will just start. Then you can also drop your questions as KSA answer my question, because he's the farmer and I want to know what other functions. I'll does it fail to bring Ifa into poetry when you know fully that some of those words are codes? They are metaphysical codes, and they have more larger implications than what. Okay, I think poetry also is a language that has larger implication in one way or the other. So, but how do you? What are the other functions that Ifa corpus or thought system serve in your poetry? What are the relevances of Ifa poetry, Ifa thought system to some of the problems or issues that you address in your poem? How can we match two together? I know I'm just ranting, but what let's just start with something, right? Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So, I mean, I get asked that a lot of times. In fact, some people even ask me how, especially because, I'm of the Christian faith, and people are like, how do you write in this manner? But I think it's personal for me, first of all, because I mean, there was one time I was speaking with my grandpa, and I'm somebody who's very interested in history and ancestry, genealogy, if you would put it that way. And so he mentioned that we came from a lineage of Ifa priests, right? My great grandpa was like the Ifa priest in the town in his time. Then his son after him, then the one after him, the one after him. Then my grandpa actually ran away because he didn't want to be the Ifa priest, so he ran from home. So I have that personal connection with that realm, as it were. And it's always also very interesting to me as somebody who is a Christian, who reads the scriptures and things like that. It's always interesting because every time I read Ifa corpus, or I read research works around the Ifa mythology, or the corpus, or that realm, I find significant overlaps between what is the corpus and what is the Bible. As if there was like an intermingling of faiths. So it was really very interesting for me to see those. And that's why I also used biblical allusions in my works as a way to challenge or to provoke some sort of thoughts, as to that interrelationship in a way between both worlds. And especially, of course, like I said, it's also personal for me, being that I came from a lineage where we were Ifa priests. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. That answered the question. And Katie, please, can you check the question? Something is messing up here. I think Tola, she just dropped a message for me that there are questions in the chat box. Do you want to attend to that, please?
Yes, there's a question from Chris Hill. From multiple authors, and the question
come on, it can. I will call that polluted and it's night.
We need to meet this person. Who is this person?
I brought this man.
Please, Okoyemi Martida, please.
Do you know who it is?
No, I don't. Okoyemi Martida, please.
Okay,
okay, good.
Okay, right. So Chris says, we've heard lots of the poems we've heard today refer to oceans, waves, and tides. It feels water has been an important theme in what we've heard today. I'd be interested to hear from any of those about how important is water to them and to African writing as a poetic object. So any of the writers who want to attend to this could just take it up.
That's a fantastic question, please. Okay.
Yeah, I'll say something about that. I feel like water is important to Africa because of its colonial history. And like when I'm writing, and when in my own writing, I should speak of, when I'm writing water, I'm thinking about colonialism and what water has done. I would have taken slaves, and I would add, like, you know, being the foundation of the African diaspora, mostly. Then also just kind of like thinking about how it is, particularly to Nigeria, where I'm from, it's the basis of our economy, oil exports. And you know so the water is very significant to our daily lives. It either brings us money or it took away our people, something like that. So you know, all of our histories around water. And also there's to not be religious, but there's this idea that water is life. And you know, and that's what poetry tries to do too, to make life. That's what I think.
Anyone else? You can start at the question.
Yeah, just to also say that we are made of water. Our brain is made of water. We get headaches when we don't drink enough water. And the sense that I've got a line that says, no tide can wash away his words, in terms of Baudelaire, this idea that there is our life force, and we either can see ourselves as being water energy, or we can see ourselves being part of the land, or being part of fire or air. And I think water is such an elemental force, and I think poetry is that kind of space that can really talk about the intangible things, like qualities of water, as well as the physicality of water.
Okay, thank you. Any other poets? Yeah.
Precious, I know you write about water a bit as well. Do you want to say something? Okay.
So for me, water is more of a spiritual practice. It's more, I'm not a very religious person, but water does factor in, like, with a lot of religions, a lot of spirituality, whether it's biblical, whether it's Abrahamic, or it's, you know, African traditional religions. So I've just always felt that, you know, it's this cleansing thing. It's this thing that you can go into and be cleansed. It's this thing that gives life. Is this thing that can take it away. It's vicious, it's calm, it has, you know, all the other qualities of life, but it's not exactly a human being. And I just feel connected to it. I feel like I can relate to what it's going through, how it feels, and I just like to.
Okay, thank you, Precious, for that response. I think I think some people are raising up, but there is a question in the chat box for Nure and Olajide, and that question is for Saradha. And Nure, can you? I think this thing is not.
Let me read
your poems. All right, thank you.
It says the poems are rich in narrative. That's for Saradha. I hope to read them more carefully. I once heard Kaimila talk about how during his academic research, he sometimes finds information he can't write essays about, but can only write poems about. Are there things that reveal to you that these stories are better told in poetry rather than prose? Also, something in your poems on multiple occasions resonates: Walcott. Do you read Walcott? And who do you read? A lot of questions there. You can make it fast.
Yeah, I have read Walcott, The Bounty, and I think I've read Omeros as well. And that's, again, another much about being on the ocean. I think I like his long poems. In terms of the question around, I feel that the content sometimes of a poem can be determined by the rhythm of the thought. And I think, and actually poetry happens on a different side of the brain to prose. It's a different part of the brain where poetry happens, and I can never remember which one, and I don't really want to know which one. I like the mysteriousness of poetry, and I feel that the only difference for me really is the line break, is where the breath, how long the breath takes in terms of, and I think prose, a thought in prose, there's an expansion there, but I think you can also get that in poetry as well. So I think it's really up to the writer to really understand whether their relationship to poetry and their relationship to prose or essay, or because I think the same material that I've heard today in people's poems could easily be expanded into essays, expanded into other realms, into dance, into theatre. They can be adapted. And so poetry is a very pure, and there was an earlier question about the question of poetry and popularity. I think poetry exists within us, and we voice it. And then we can take it, and it can take us on other journeys to other forms. And I think the sense of that it not being popular is a misconception, because it's in the music, it's in the way we make bread, it's in the way that we dance. There's a different sense of what poetry is. There's poetry on the page, poetry in our lives, poetry in our heart. So I do read a lot, and I actually learn more about poetry through dance, through movement.
Thank you, Saradha, for that response. I think there is another one from Deborah Halfred. And
let me read that.
Okay, thank you.
It says, I struggle with putting my creative thoughts into words or brilliant words. With poetry, it's even worse. I read other people's poems and mine look oversimplified in comparison. So my question is, how do I express my uniqueness, pass across my message, yet stand out? Is there any of the poets that haven't answered questions before could try to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I think so. Hauwa, Jeremy, Edil, you want to come and rescue us from that beautiful question?
I can. I teach Poetry 1 to students at my university, and a lot of them ask sort of this question. And I think sort of the very best thing that I think folks who want to write, or even writers right now, is doing a lot of soul work and a lot of excavation of our own memory. I think that's probably one of the most important parts. And then also figuring out, I think also as writers and as people, we've dealt with times in our lives where we're dealing with speechlessness, where we're not able to give language to our experiences. And so I think the very best thing that you can do, especially when you're a writer who's starting out, is figuring out who your ancestors are, who your literary ancestors are. Because one of the most beautiful things is that they are sort of writing and attempting to answer questions that you have right now. And so there's a way that you're sort of never alone once you start reading other writers. I feel, I think there's excavation, figuring out who your writers are. And also just figuring out what your voice is, which requires that you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to your instinct. You have to listen to your gut. You have to just sort of listen and be able to trust yourself and trust that whatever is coming out on the page is unique to you and is worthy to you, no matter if it gets published or not. Yeah, I wonder what other folks are thinking about this question.
Any other addition to that? Any other response?
I think that's a brilliant answer. That's a very, very, very lovely answer. But I think the thing to remember is that no one sees the world like you see the world. No one feels the world that you feel the world. There may be common themes, there may be common notions, but your experience, how it lands in you, is your voice. And if it comes out simple, there's nothing wrong with that. Rumi comes out very simple, and yet it's profound.
Please mute your mic, please. Can you, Akiosini, Francis Ugamba, please mute your mic. Thank you for that beautiful reply to the question. I think poetry is just, I don't know, but I appreciate simplicity. And what is complex, it depends on where you are standing. Because you can say, I stand here, and it can still be complex. It can have some kind of history. the reading can be very, very fieldy or wieldy as you want. You can't say that maybe someone write in a simple way. There are no deep meanings to it. There can be deep meanings to simple words, and there are poets who have written lots of beautiful works that can actually, show some evidence to that. So, yeah, you have a question? Go,
yes, sir.
Go. Yeah.
How do we get your chapbooks?
Okay, the poets can respond to that. I don't have any.
How do we get your books to buy?
The books, your books. Promote your books, and let's see where we can get the books.
Okay. How do we get your books? Saradha, Edil, Precious, Hauwa?
It's available. The publisher is Ashika.
Akashic.
Yeah, Akashic. Yeah, and the publisher was giving a discount over the festive period, but so you can buy it as a box set. You can also buy it as a book, the whole lot. There's 13 chapbooks. We're only a small sample. And I think maybe some of the poets are selling them directly. We were given 100 copies to distribute as well. So they may be selling them separately. I don't know.
Lovely. Yeah, I just want to give you a chance to tell people, okay, anybody wants to buy your work. There's another question from Noreen. Should I read that?
Yeah, please go on, please.
It's for Hauwa and Ajibola. It says, I find the poems to be especially musical. Ajibola even read 2 poems, I think, with impulses from Fela Kuti. Is musicality something you have to especially work at when you're writing the poems, and how do you achieve this?
For me, I'm not sure that it's something that I deliberately set out to do when I'm writing. I feel like perhaps inherently deep down, I'm a deeply musical person, because even when I speak, sometimes people say stuff like, oh, that sounds very musical. So I think I'm not sure that it's deliberate. I think it really just finds a way to seep into my writing. That said, I have a penchant for repetitions, perhaps not as I don't think I do it as successfully as Tolashe does it, but I often find myself drawn to repetitions, but repetitions with perhaps slight variations. It's why, for example, in some of my poems, in one particular poem that I read earlier, you'd find that I talk about something like I was influenced in his silence, I was influenced in his language at all. There's a kind of repetition, even though it's not entirely word for word. So I think one way that I achieve that is by repetition that is not entirely tiresome. Yeah.
I find that music is it's like a lot depends on the sound, and it can be mapped out. Like I had a teacher who once told me that she would map out the sounds she wanted to make in the songs, in the poems, and she was like, how many S notes do I want to eat? And she's like, solid, sound, safe, and she would just kind of like map out the words that have those sounds. But I think what works is there's a rhythm inside my head when I'm thinking about the poems, and my thing is to write in unadorned sentences. Like I don't like adjective and adverbs. They often have the wrong sound. Quick as a K sound that I don't like. And my thing is to pick out the sounds I don't. So when I write the poem, I just kind of like pick out the sounds I don't like. Like, it's like that thing that James Baldwin said when it was like, write a sentence as clean as a bone. If the sentence is clean as a bone, it would already be beautiful. So that's my thing. So like I think of poems, even though they're like lineated, I think of them on the sentence level, then before I think of them on the line level. So like I write the sentence, I see if the sentence sings, if it has a musicality to it. If it doesn't, then I keep rewriting it until I achieve something like that.
Tolashe, thanks for your anti-adjective project. Any other questions? So I will just add to this, to the questions you've been asked earlier. are you proposing in your poems sisterism or sisterhood as a variant of feminism or African feminism, so to say? Because I see that featuring strongly in your work or in the subjects that you address. Others, what's is sister? What is being sisterly? And what is sisterhood? What is sisterism?
I didn't get the first part of your question. I think you were asking about whether or not my feminism seeps into my poetry, right?
Yes, and I am asking if sisterism is a kind of branch or a model that you see as maybe effective or has some potentials to change our gender worldview.
So my use of the concept or term of sister, it's actually really basic and personal. I'm not sure that I had a global or wider context or connotation for it. So when manuscript was ready, it didn't have a title, so I shared it with a friend, and she gave me a format like in what capacity are you writing this? Someone on can the host mute person, please? Okay, yeah. So she's like, in what capacity have you written this book? And I'm like, it's in my capacity as a sister. And she's like, so call it sister. So I called it sister. So really, I'm not sure that it really has anything to do with feminism or activism, except if perhaps we would say that expressing one's feelings as in their capacity as a sister would be feminism. Yes, it is. But other than that, it's really not. It's just a sister writing about her strained relationship with her brother and what role she might have played in that strain. My feminism mostly, it's in my essays, it's in my activism, it's in my protests on the streets. Very little of it seeps into my poetry. And I think it's deliberate. I try to make my poetry a little more, I just try to deviate it from all of that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the poets? If we have questions, we can drop it in the chat box and then we can come to the questions. And so questions.
I have a question.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, somebody asked another question. Let her answer that. That's Noreen again. Notice repetitions, Hauwa, especially in the last poem you read. Something about it made me think of Joe Shapcott's poem, Scorpion, where she also employed several repetitions. Okay, it's not a question, it's kind of a comment. My question is for anyone in the group who wants to answer. What do you hope to do next as a writer now that you've published a chapbook that's continent-wide? Do you have any other projects at the moment that you'd like to talk about, like in a minute or so each?
For all the reading poets, I guess so.
Yes, for the poets.
Tolashi, Saradha, Hauwa, Edil, you want to talk about your next move? I'll say something. I think the next thing is always to write a book, but when you think about it that way, it's kind of like daunting. So like the idea is to just kind of like write the next poem and write the next poem and write the next poem. So like for me, it's just kind of like writing the next poem. Yeah, like it's what I do kind of like when I wake up every day, I'm always thinking about the next poem. Then, teaching, I'm very particular about teaching. I love teaching. I just like teaching again. I'm kind of like taking a break for like 6 to 10 months. So like, I love teaching. I like it. I like to teach poetry, talk to people about poetry. And so that's like what's in my future immediately. More poems and more discussion.
Sounds like a great plan to me. So
for me, oh, sorry. I was going to say, I think for me, I've sort of realized, I wonder what you all think about this, where this chapbook helped me prepare for new thinking, where I think for this chapbook, I was thinking a lot about sort of shame and silence, especially for women and girls in gendered spaces, and how that sort of led me to who taught me to be silent or who taught me shame first. And so I think that, yeah, there's a beautiful moment of graduating from an older self to sort of a newer self who's capable of new thinking. I think especially I'm a grad student, so I'm working on my thesis now. And so I've been thinking a lot about sort of ideas of historical amnesia that sort of are related to that. In that I think that when you're sort of indoctrinated, or you can say gendered in a specific way, you're sort of taught to forget that inner instinct, that inner person who you are. So I'm sort of thinking about that on a historical level, but yeah, I feel you. I'm just trying to write the next poem, to be honest, and then seeing where that sort of takes me, and sort of the really great gift of writing a poem. Who knows where sort of that instinct comes from? Sort of just happens sometimes. It's really beautiful.
yeah. Every poet is thinking about writing the next poem, I guess.
Yeah. I think that I agree with what Tolashi said about how daunting it can be to try to write the next book. Especially, I don't know, but for me, I feel like when you write a chapbook, it's like traditional that, the next thing that follows is maybe a full length or something, but that can be very challenging. So I think I agree to that. And I just really want to write the next poem, although I would like to explore more of the Ifa corpus in my next book, which hopefully will be a full length.
Thank you. Any other question? Any other response to your next project? What is it all about? Tell us something. No more questions. Okay, so great responses from all of us for the questions that the audience, they have put on in the chat box, and beautiful poems from all of us. And I'm going to, shift the button to Ayodele Ibiyemi for the vote of thanks. And he has the show now. Ayo, come on board, please. Ayodele Ibiyemi, are you there? Can you hear me, Ayo? It's like the network is doing Ojoro. Ayo is completely frozen. Thanks to MTN or Glo or Airtel.
But I just want to say that I've had a great time. I enjoyed everyone's poems. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for reading and for participating. And I look forward to reading more of your work and seeing your name in big lights in the future. Ayo is not showing up. So
Ayo is not showing. So I'm just going to say I will say the vote of thanks. Thank you, Ajibola Tolashi. Thank you, Edil Hassan. Sarada, beautiful show there. Precious, absolutely. I enjoyed all the poems you read for us. I really appreciate you for coming. And Kola Oleke is a man of double faith, Ifa and Jesus all together. We do everything together, right? That's syncretism, right? So Jeremy Khan, absolutely. I enjoy your poem as well. Hauwa, everyone who is here, I enjoy. Edil, thank you for coming. It's nice meeting you today, and we hope to have more beautiful collaboration in future. All the audience, Nathan, Sisma, and Chris Eli, thank you, my host at the VMI. I can see you. Thank you so much, and everyone who is here. And I have all the people who ask questions. All the questions are quite profound and they are fantastic, and we appreciate the responses as well. Everyone who is here, thank you for coming. And We'll be having some other reading very soon, and we are going to be promoting the event online. We want you to come and join us to make this show a wonderful one. And all of us, if you have any other thing you want to tell us, you can hit me or hit us at submissions@olongoafrica.com. I'm going to say something and I'm going to respond to it. Or chat me up on my handle or Kolatuboson. The question is going to reach us definitely. Once you chat Kola, it's going to reach me. Once you chat me, it's going to reach Kola. So, and Hene as well and Hayo, the BME or the associates, if you have questions for us, you can read them. They are going to get the questions to us. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We appreciate
my network
you.
Is poor. I don't know what is happening.
No problem, Ayo. I know that you have a poor network. No problem. So thank you, everyone. We'll end it here today, and we hope to put the link maybe on YouTube. The link to the reading. You might want to check it out on the YouTube or something. But we'll see to that very soon, and we'll post it on our handle. Ayo, you want to say something? It's gone again. Okay. Thank you all.
Have a nice evening.
All right. Bye.